One of the bigger basketball teams that I've ever coached against, with the exception of coached against Kansas, coached against North Carolina, that had that kind of length and that kind of size as well too. And it was a game where our margin for error was very small in the game, and we needed to play with energy, we needed to play with intelligence, and I felt like we did it in spurts, particularly early on. I thought we were really good at times to really keep their athleticism kind of a non-factor for us. And then once the game got away, I thought we had some mental breakdowns defensively, and that athleticism is hard to guard when you think you're just going to out-athlete people and get teams that run loose on you like that. Very similar to what Oregon did with us in the last 10 minutes of the game. They did a lot more of it in the second half of the game. First half, I thought we started out great. Second half, I thought we started out focused, but fatigued mentally. We really struggled to comprehend at times just defensive rotations and adjustments that way, and they certainly made us pay, and a lot of it had to do with just their length and their ability to go over the top and dunk and those types of things.
Talked about a few of these Pac-12 games with kind of well-attended crowds. Tonight was 2,500, kind of missed opportunities. At what point do you think that starts to kind of take a toll on a program?
That's not a question I can answer because I don't look at it that way. I go day to day, game to game, but in terms of taking a toll on a program, I got one of the best freshmen in the country in this program. I've got kids that come from afar, from Virginia or Minneapolis, that have come from afar. You got a pro in Robo. I think in terms of taking a toll on a program, you just got to keep battling, keep playing. You got another athletic team coming in here on Saturday, and then we go on the road against two great athletic teams, and we come back home again. So we can't look at it that way. We look at it in terms of getting ready for the next one. I don't look at it and say, what toll does it take on us? Because I just worry about these kids. And as long as they come back and play hard for me and bounce back, we'll just keep battling.
What was the message at halftime after I think they were 7-12 from three, and obviously that was a point of emphasis, but when a team gets hot, is it just hard to close that down?
You know, we talked about pressure closing out on the ball a little bit more instead of giving them the threes, and they did get hot. They're a team that hasn't shot it that well all the time, but they got rolling on us. So we really talked about the adjustment was to take away the three-point shooting. I didn't think we were very tough at getting out and playing as tough. We weren't as tough as we were in the Oregon game. We were a lot more aggressive, a lot more energized. Our legs were not there to be able to close out, take away. And you can't close out on a team that's athletic and that can shoot it. You're just in for a long night because you're not going to soft close out a good shooting team like that when they get on a roll. You need to really get after them to make them put it on the floor. That's the adjustment we talked about at halftime. I think they're wanting to do it, just didn't have the mental capability to generate the energy to do it.
And what was kind of the flow of the game in their three-point shooting, maybe the reason you didn't bring Devontae in to kind of match up with Moses?
You know, in Coop's case, he has struggled in some games, and the flow of the game, the energy in the game was a lot faster. And it wasn't so much, I didn't think, was matching up with him early on. It was really Prince Ali and Wilkes. They were beating us from the perimeter in, not from the inside out. I thought we did a good job sitting on those bigs early on in the game. The perimeter game is really what broke us down. The guard play defensively, their guards were penetrating, shooting threes, and it made it for a long night.
Like you've said before, there's only so much you can do to speed up a young team's growth. Just as a coach, how do you stay patient with this group and continue to be a teacher with them?
I think the word that you use in there is patience and teacher. You know, I'm a coach that's been at this for a while, and I understand young people. Things are not going to come to them overnight as much as I want them to, and I want them to get better quicker. You have to be patient. You cannot lose them. You got to continue to teach and teach and teach, because when they get it, or when they grow, or when they mature, you've got to make sure you've taught the things you need to teach for them to be successful. If you try to shortcut it and stop teaching, even when they grow and get bodies filled out and those types of things, they're not going to know what to do. So you never, ever, ever stop teaching, and you always come back to young people and give them an opportunity to grow.
Early on, or before the game started, I guess, was beating their size or limiting their shots, or did limiting their deep shots kind of arise later in the game, sort of at the half, because they're not as good as?
Early on in the game, we felt like we needed to mix up our defenses. I was surprised we were able to play them as long as we could in man, because I didn't think we'd be able to do that. And we were pretty good in our man-to-man. I think they were struggling early on, and then they got rolling on us. So we had to switch and do some things to try to contain Ali and try to contain Wilkes. Wilkes really had a got it rolling on us and really made things difficult for us in the first half defensively. So our game plan was to mix up our defenses, but I didn't feel like we got in a rhythm with any defense to be able to sustain and do a good job of keeping them off guard. It was more about them getting in a better rhythm, and they were able to score from different areas on the floor a little bit better than what we hoped they would be able to.
Closing out the first half, you had sort of a unique set out there. There were no point guards on the floor. What was the reason behind that decision?
Size. We just needed to get bigger. And I felt like A2 had given up 3 straight plays in a row with Ali blowing right by him or Wilkes blowing by him from up top, like I mentioned. And we just felt like we need to get bigger on the floor, to rebound more, to close off driving lanes more.
And Cannon only played 5 minutes tonight. What's the reason behind that?
He's been nursing a hip flexor that he picked up in the Oregon State game, somewhere in the Oregon State game, that limited his reps in practice as we prepped for Oregon. It limited him in the Oregon game. He did not practice at all yesterday. It really limited him. So we've been trying to just bring him back slowly with his body and everything. So we need to get him back to full strength. So I was very cautious to have him play too much when he was really fatigued on the floor.
Attendance about 2,500 today. For the USC game, you'd hope to have a little bit more. It's a Saturday. I would ask, what was the atmosphere today, and then how much does atmosphere play into it for them not being fatigued in the second half?
You know, I think our atmosphere was good today, because anytime we can get 2,500 plus people in here, it puts energy in the building for us, and we were hoping to get more energy out of ourselves and everything, but this team had a tough road to get ready for this game, and they could not generate the energy to give the crowd more energy so the crowd could give us more energy. But as Theo mentioned, the crowd was a good crowd. You hate to waste any crowd that has numbers there and everything, because the fact that they got out here, that's why it's so important, win or lose. Those kids need to go up there and thank them. I thought they did a good job of that.